Hey, Thomas Westbrook here, and you're watching Atheist Edge.
Allah turned a clay bird into a real bird for Jesus. The Infancy Gospel of Thomas. In the Infancy Gospel of Thomas, Jesus, as a child, made clay birds and then turned them into real birds. Do you think the Muslims decided that since the Christians rejected this story, they would take this one?
The Boy Scouts of America receive public funding and special considerations regarding the use of government lands, but they don't allow atheists. And it actually hits kind of close to home because as an adult, I'm an active member of the Civil Air Patrol. And many, many years ago, one of my squadrons was looking into becoming a dually chartered Civil Air Patrol squadron and explorer post. And I was unable to apply for adult membership in the Boy Scouts, which was required if we were going to be an explorer unit, because I'm an atheist. But I'm not sorry I'm an atheist.
Israel frequently decries Hamas for using schools, hospitals, and homes to fire rockets at civilian targets in Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu said, "We use anti-missile systems to protect our civilians. They use their civilians to protect their missiles." That's the difference.
Oh, this is interesting. Remember 9/11. And what I mean by this is 9/11, 1683. So September 11th, 1683. That's when the violent spread of Islam was halted and began to be pushed out of Europe. I believe in 1683, I think they made it as far as, correct me if I'm wrong, Austria. I think that's when they made it that far, and that's when the spread of Islam started to get pushed back to Jerusalem. But yeah, so there was an older 9/11. Were you aware of that?
Well, I'm not, the 9/11 doesn't have any particular significance to me. It's a day. I'm sure you can find other things that also happened on 9/11 throughout history. To me, this is just another one of those examples of everyone likes ice cream, but I need to kill you if you don't like the flavor of ice cream that I like. And, it's not just the Christian ice cream versus the Muslim ice cream, but you've got Sunni and Shiite ice cream, and people are willing to kill over that. I don't see how anyone can look at history and not see the violent causation of religion in humanity. Just another example.
It's true.
In the New Testament, Paul took note of the main thoroughfare in Damascus, named Straight Street. In actuality, the street wasn't called that until after the 4th century, when the Temple of Jupiter was converted into the Church of John the Baptist. The author of Acts simply misinterpreted a passage from the Gospel of Mark. The voice of one crying in the wilderness, "Prepare ye the way of the Lord, make this path straight." The road was retroactively changed from Decumanus Maximus to Straight Street to comport with the Bible. Finding inconsistencies with translations isn't something new, and the Bible isn't really immune to that. Since the original texts of the Bible were translated by man and man fallible, we are going to have many inconsistencies. However, the sad thing is when people try to change the world to fit that inconsistency, trying to reinforce the lie.
The Islamic practice of blood money, or diya, is a monetary compensation for intentionally or accidentally causing injury or loss of life. It is a sum of money paid to the heirs of the victim by the perpetrator in lieu of punishment. One problem with this system is that it promotes inequality. It can be used by wealthier individuals to avoid trials, but poor people don't have the same option. To most of the developed world, dia is an outmoded approach to criminal justice prescribed by an Iron Age religion. Well, if you think about it, dia, what a deal for the wealthy. Kind of reminds you of the mafia, doesn't it? I still think the practice exists today. It's just in different wording, a different heading to it. I still think that there's inequality where there is problems with the law. If I got into trouble with the law, my checkbook is not as big as others. So if I hurt somebody else and they were wealthy, do you think that I would be represented in court as well as they are? I'd have to not say I had good chances. Not good odds at all.
Women must keep their hair covered and wear a veil. It is not considered rape if a man forces himself onto an uncovered woman. This is another verse the Muslims borrowed from Christianity, although they made it much stricter and they actually follow it. The Christian version is 1 Corinthians 11:3-6, but I want you to understand that the head of every man is Christ, the head of a wife is her husband, and the head of Christ is God. Every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered dishonors his head, but every wife who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head, since it is the same as if her head were shaven. For if a wife will not cover her head, then she should cut her hair short. But since it is disgraceful for a wife to cut off her hair or shave her head, let her cover her head. Incidentally, this is why the Amish and Mennonite women always wear a cap. They never know when they might need to utter a prayer, so always wearing a cap, they are always ready. When I asked why our church didn't follow this, I was told that the word cover in this passage could be translated covered, uncovered, loose, or tied. And since they don't know what it means, they didn't feel any obligation to follow it.
Joshua's checklist for the city of Jericho. Let's see if we have any common themes here. Number 1, send 7 priests, that many, to the edge of town. Number 2, walk around the city. How many times? 7. For how many days? 7. Blow horns. How many? 7. Common theme. Okay, let's set the 7 aside and see if there's anything else. Yell real loudly. Then the walls are going to kind of crumble down. And then you kill everything in the city that moves, including babies. Yuck.
Allah resurrected a man that had been dead for over a century.
Okay, another zombie story.
Yeah,
I love the one with Jesus.
How long was Lazarus? Lazarus had been dead, what, a couple weeks, 2, 3 weeks, something like that. And it even says in the Bible that he was already started stinking when Jesus raised him up.
Yeah, you think? He needs to step up to the soup a little bit more if you're going to resurrect after that amount of time.
Right.
More than 3,400 priests have been accused of child sexual abuse since 2004. These are just the reported cases. So, trust me, there's tons more. Of those, only 3% were convicted, and just 2% went to prison. And somehow, they preach a gospel of heaven and hell. And if you ask for forgiveness, you will be saved and you avoid going to hell. So you're telling me that child molesters, perpetrators will go to heaven? Is that what you're telling me?
Quiz. Who binds non-believers from seeing the truth? A. Satan. B. Our free will is never taken from us. C. God. D. A and C. E. All of the above.
Oh, this is a quote from Frank Zappa. Just remember that there is a big difference between kneeling down and bending over. You like
Unless
that?
unless you're a Catholic kid.
Yep. Yeah, altar boy, right?
Altar boy, yeah.
Jal, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, or land diving is the ancient ritual of tying vines to one's ankles and jumping from heights of 70 to 100 feet. Still practiced on Pentecost Island and Vanuatu, the participants believe that the higher the jumps, the more likely the gods will bless them with a bountiful harvest. Unlike bungee jumping, jumpers do not bounce back up after the jump. The stop is abrupt, often resulting in broken bones. This is a good argument for why not to be a vegan. You only need to please the hunting gods and not the harvest gods.
Mary was not a virgin. When she gave birth to Jesus, she wasn't a virgin. In all references to Mary, the word Alma is used, which simply means a young woman of childbearing age. When virgin is used elsewhere in the Bible, authors employ betulot, which means virgin, or betula morasha, a virgin who is engaged to be married. And even if it just doesn't make sense, why would they choose someone so young to bear the Christ? Her age is a problem. I don't even care about virgin or no virgin. She was a minor. And minors cannot give consent. At least God should have known that.
Instead of placing your hand over a Bible when swearing an oath, you can grab your crotch instead. And that's in Genesis 24:2.
Philosophy. The Michael Jackson philosophy of swearing in.
So everyone go to Genesis 24:2 and see if I'm telling you the truth or not. That
Did you say genitals 24:2?
Oh,
sorry,
Jesus.
I misunderstood.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Here's a list of the 30 least prosperous countries on Earth. Not surprisingly, also amongst the most religious countries on Earth. Though none of the authors of the New Testament Gospels were eyewitnesses of Jesus, Paul claims to have met both Peter and Jesus' brother James.
Yeah, and this is where the Israelites attack the Midianites. This is when they're wandering in the desert for 40 fucking years on a trip that, according to Google Maps, should take 6 days.
I'm right there with you because I've already done it on the GPS. But walking through the Sinai Peninsula should take about 5 to 6 days. You're right.
Now, even if you imagine that we're talking about, like a what was it, 100,000? I can't remember the number. The 100,000 Hebrew men on foot, and
It was 600,000 men, not including the women and
600,000.
children. So it's estimated that would be 2 million people.
2 million people at a time when that would be approximately 4 times as many people in one city, in the city of Ramses. That would be 4 times as many people as currently as at that time inhabited the entire country of Egypt. So those Hebrew slaves should have owned Egypt.
There's only one inscribed stele that even speaks of the Hebrews in the Egyptian archaeological record. And that's talking about taking over the Israelites in their home area, not in Egypt. There is nothing, no archaeological record that ever speaks about Hebrews in any form or fashion. Not 1, not 10, not 100, definitely not 2 million in Cairo.
Yeah, so what they're thinking is that story was probably more, the story of the Exodus was probably more likely based on their exodus out of Babylon, in the time of Ezra around 450 BC. And, the way the stories kind of change important details until they get twisted into something else. And so there's references to a volcano here and there, and where the fuck did the volcano come from? Because that's not in Babylon or in Egypt, so nobody knows. But there are other references to volcanoes elsewhere, so they're thinking there might have been, like a conglomeration of different stories. But the thing that I wanted to talk about is where Moses decides that, those people worship a different God than we do, so we have to kill them. We have to raid their village and murder all the old people, murder everybody's grandma and grandpa. We have to kill all their animals. We have to take all of their stuff. We have to burn their village to the ground. We have to kill every fighting man, of course, but then kill absolutely everybody else too. And then the Hebrews show up at Moses's camp, and they've got all these women and children because, the moral thing to do is to preserve the women and children. And Moses gets angry because Moses is a disciple of Yahweh, Yehovah, the war god. And so why are you being merciful to these women and children? So he orders his men to slaughter all of these little boys right in front of their mothers, and then to butcher their mothers right in front of their daughters. And then they are to murder. Now, I want you to it depends on the translation.
I'm looking right at it, Aron. So you're at Numbers 31:7, and they warned the Midianites as the Lord commanded Moses. They slew all the males. Then you jump down to Numbers 31:15. Have ye saved all the women alive? Behold, they caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor, and there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. Kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that had known a man by lying with him.
So your translation says woman. Other translations will say women, child. Other translations refer to the among the little ones. So what is
the next verse is, but all the women, children, all the young women that have not known a man by lying with them, keep alive for yourselves.
So what is the distinction in Jewish tradition between the woman child, or the children, or the infants, depending on your translation, and the adult women? What's that division?
Virginity.
It's 13 years old. It's the bat mitzvah.
Right.
So they're talking about pre-teen children. So Moses is telling his people to murder all of these, to stab through, run through with the sword, all of these helpless little boys right in front of their mothers. How horrible, how evil, imaginable is that? And then they have to butcher their mothers right in front of their daughters. So their daughters are witnessing their brothers and their mothers being butchered. Then God's a holy representative of love, then have to determine somehow, the Bible doesn't specify how, the men test these preteen girls to see whether they have known a man by lying with him. Just let your imagination run rampant as to how they figure that out. And then those that are decided to be virgin, you may keep for what purpose? Oh, yes, for yourselves.
It doesn't take a Bible scholar to figure that one out.
Well, when the only criteria is that they be virgin, then there's only one possible purpose left remaining. So.
Oh, yeah, sorry, January 20th. So January 6th was the warm-up act, and then they were going to come in force on the 20th.
Gee, I haven't been watching the news very much. How did that work out?
Right. It's just okay.
I think it's hilarious now that you're seeing all this stuff, and they're starting to get the idea that they might have been played. Really? Shocking. Who could have seen that coming? If you believe in one party being filled with sex trafficking pedophiles that drink kids' blood, well, okay.
That mine looks just like him. Courtney gave him to me.
This is the one that I found in traffic.
Are
you hear that story?
Lalandra had that one laying on her bed the last show we did together, and it was like half the size. He's grown that much.
When we got this cat, it was the size that her head is now. It was this tiny little thing.
Yeah.
I thought we were driving along in traffic, and I remember looking out my window or my rearview mirror, and I saw something running under and between cars, and I thought it was a squirrel. But I realized it was too small to be a squirrel, and I realized that's a kitten. That's like a really tiny kitten. So
you're like my wife. She stops for anything that might even look like it's coming out in the road. And she stopped in the middle of a 4-lane highway for a turtle once.
Well, it was in fact a kitten. So I mean, I turned my Jeep sideways and tried to block traffic, and got out to go to grab this kitten, and it was amazing how young it was. I mean, it's such a tiny little thing. I mean, this big.
Oh yeah, I saw the pictures.
But she was moving so fast, and I managed to catch her and put her in the Jeep. But the problem is I had the doors and the roof off. So how do you contain an animal, right? So like hand it to my wife. My wife can't keep her, and then somehow the cat jumps out of her hand. I grab the kitten again, and she bit through my hand. Because this is a feral kitten at this point, right? And I put her, I caught her, put her back in my wife's hand, and I get in the Jeep to drive home, and I'm like, how are we going to find a home for this kitten? And my wife very sternly said, she's mine.
We're going to find a way. We're going to find a way. That is, you guys, I cannot express how awesome that is. That is just, well, we're big animal lovers in this family. So that is awesome.
It is funny that you and I have the same pets.
I know, that's so crazy. Now, Nala, she was 101 pounds. She's down to 83. So she's got some liver enzymes. I don't know if it's a Pyrenees thing. You might want to keep that in the back of your mind, but a little liver enzyme thing. She just had two teeth pulled yesterday. So she's on some pain meds. So she's kind of out of it. I'm doubling up on her rations though. But yeah, she's in no shape to be able to jump 8-foot fence. Let's just say that.